If she still talks to you, still replies, still acts like nothing is fully wrong, but something in your chest keeps telling you that her energy has changed, this video is for you. Because sometimes people do not leave all at once. They leave slowly. They leave emotionally first. They leave in small, deniable ways. And that is what makes it so painful. Nothing is clear enough to force acceptance, but everything feels different enough to hurt. So you keep thinking maybe you're overreacting. Maybe she is just tired. Maybe she is stressed. Maybe she just needs a little space. And maybe sometimes that is true. But sometimes what you are feeling is not anxiety. It is awareness. It is your heart noticing a shift before your mind is ready to name it. Today, I want to walk through 7 signs she may be emotionally walking away, even if nothing has officially ended yet. These signs are subtle. That is exactly why people stay confused for so long. Because when someone leaves quietly, you do not get one big moment. You get 100 small ones. And you keep trying to explain each one away. Stay with me until the end, because the last sign is the one people misread the most. It often looks harmless on the surface, but emotionally, it changes everything. Sign number 1. Her warmth becomes inconsistent. Not gone, just inconsistent. And that matters, because inconsistency creates confusion in a way that absence sometimes does not. If she disappeared completely, the pain would be sharper, but the reality would also be clearer. What makes emotional withdrawal so hard is that she still gives you enough to keep hope alive. Some days she sounds soft. Some days she sounds cold. Some days she reaches for you. Some days she feels miles away. And that starts to affect your nervous system. You stop feeling secure. You start monitoring tone. You start rereading messages. You start noticing how long she takes. You start measuring tiny changes in energy. That is when connection stops feeling mutual and starts feeling unstable. A woman who is emotionally present may still have off days. She may be busy. She may be overwhelmed. She may need rest. But even then, there is usually an underlying sense of steadiness. You still feel her care. You still feel that you matter. When someone is emotionally walking away, the warmth becomes harder to trust. It starts feeling selective, controlled, almost like she is deciding how much of herself to give you and when. And the reason this happens is simple. Part of her may still care. Part of her may still feel guilty. Part of her may still want your presence. But she is no longer fully leaning toward you. She is beginning to lean away. So the warmth becomes irregular. Not because she feels nothing, but because she is no longer willing or able to stay emotionally consistent with what she once gave. Sign number 2. Curiosity about you starts fading. This one is quieter, but very revealing. When someone is emotionally invested, they remain curious about your inner world. They want to know how you are really doing. What is on your mind? What affected you that day? What excited you? What drained you? What you are becoming? Curiosity is one of the most underrated forms of love, because it means someone is still reaching toward your interior. They are not just responding to your presence. They're engaging with who you are. When emotional withdrawal begins, that curiosity often gets thinner. She may still answer you. She may still talk, but she stops reaching deeper. She asks less. She follows up less. She does not linger on your feelings the way she used to. Your conversations become more functional, more surface level, more about logistics, updates, reactions, small talk. Less about the emotional thread between you. And this is where many people get stuck, because they tell themselves, well, she is still talking to me. Yes, but talking is not the same thing as emotionally moving toward someone. A person can remain in contact long after they have started pulling their heart back. And when curiosity fades, it often means the emotional investment behind the connection is shrinking too. It does not always mean she hates you. It does not always mean she never cared. Sometimes it simply means she is protecting distance now. She is no longer trying to know you more deeply because some part of her is already loosening the bond. Sign number 3. Your emotional bids stop landing the same way. An emotional bid is a small moment where you reach for connection. It might be a vulnerable sentence, a story from your day, a soft joke, a hint that you miss her, a moment where you are really trying to meet each other emotionally. When the connection is alive, those bids tend to land. She picks them up. She expands on them. She meets you. Even if the response is simple, it feels emotionally connected. But when someone is walking away, your bids start falling flat. You send something sincere, and the response feels thin. You open a deeper door, and she answers from the hallway. You try to create intimacy, and the energy drifts back to neutral. This is one of the most painful signs because it creates emotional loneliness inside a connection that technically still exists. You are not fully abandoned, but you are not really being met anymore either. And that in-between state can make people doubt themselves. They start wondering if they're asking for too much, if they're being too sensitive, if they should just relax and stop reading into things. But emotional disconnect often shows up first in these moments, not in big declarations. In tiny failures to meet each other, what once felt natural starts feeling one-sided. And over time, that changes your behavior too. You stop sharing as openly. You become more cautious. You start protecting yourself. So now both people are becoming less emotionally available, but for very different reasons. One is withdrawing. The other is reacting to the withdrawal. And that is how emotional distance deepens without anyone naming it directly. I want to take a quick moment to thank everyone who supports Soft Mind. Every cup I share with you, like this Chloe the Cat mug, reminds me of how this community grew from one quiet idea into something warm and real. Each Chloe the Cat item helps me keep creating these videos, so if you'd like to support the channel, you can grab your own cozy mug at colabbmusic.com. Thank you for being part of this calm space. Sign number 4. She stops bringing you into her future in small ways. This does not just mean big promises. It means little assumptions, little inclusions, little signs that you still exist in the way she imagines her life moving forward. When someone is emotionally close to you, they naturally reference the future with you inside it. Maybe casually, maybe indirectly, maybe without even realizing it. It can sound like, "You would love this place. We should try that sometime. You have to see this with me. Remind me to tell you when that happens." Even tiny things like that matter. They reveal that your presence still lives inside her mental picture of tomorrow. But when she is emotionally walking away, that future language often starts disappearing. She becomes more present tense, more self-contained, more separate. She may still be polite, still warm at times, still there in limited ways, but she stops extending the thread forward. And once that happens, you begin feeling it. The connection starts living only in the moment, with no emotional momentum. That does not always mean she has already made a final decision, but it often means she is no longer building inwardly in the same direction. She is not weaving you into what comes next. And relationships do not only survive on current affection, they also survive on shared psychological future, the sense that this bond is still going somewhere. When that begins to disappear, the connection often starts feeling fragile, even if nobody says so out loud. Before I go into the next sign, I want to pause for a second. If you have been carrying this kind of emotional confusion for a while, it gets heavy. Not dramatic, just heavy. Because confusion has a way of draining you quietly. It makes you overthink normal moments. It makes your mind search for certainty where none is being given. And sometimes what helps is not another answer right away. Sometimes it is something softer. A small moment of comfort. A calmer start to the morning. A gentler space to come back to. That is part of why I wanted to mention the Chloe the Cat ceramic mug from Aurora by Cola. It is one of those simple little things that adds a bit of softness to your day. Something warm in your hands. Something gentle in the middle of a hard week. If that sounds like the kind of comfort you need lately, you can find it on the site. Now let's come back to this, because the next sign is where many people finally start realizing the distance is not just in their head. Sign number 5. Her responsiveness becomes emotionally strategic. This is different from simply being busy. Everyone gets busy. Everyone gets tired. Everyone has days where they do not have much energy. But there is a difference between natural inconsistency and emotional strategy. When someone is emotionally invested, even delayed responses often still carry warmth. You can feel the intention. You can feel that they're returning to you. When someone is walking away, Responsiveness can start feeling more controlled than natural, more measured, almost like she is managing access. She answers enough to avoid conflict, enough to keep things technically open, enough to avoid seeming cruel, but not in a way that invites closeness. This often creates a strange emotional pattern. You no longer feel chosen. You feel accommodated. And that distinction hurts, because being accommodated can look polite on the surface, but emotionally, it feels empty. You start noticing that replies come without expansion. That affection appears without depth. That presence exists without openness. And sometimes the person doing this is not trying to be manipulative. Sometimes she does not fully understand what she is doing herself. She may be conflicted. She may be guilty. She may be emotionally avoidant. She may not want to hurt you, but also may not want to move closer anymore. So she manages the bond instead of feeding it. She keeps it alive at a low temperature, enough that it does not die immediately, not enough that it can really breathe. And the reason this sign matters is because it shifts the emotional experience of the connection. Instead of feeling mutual and alive, it starts feeling rationed. And love that is being rationed rarely feels safe. Sign number 6. You feel more and more alone after talking to her, not less. This sign is important because many people only ask, "Are we still talking?" But the better question is, how do I feel after we talk? Do I feel settled? Do I feel understood? Do I feel connected? Do I feel emotionally closer? Or do I feel more confused than before? More empty than before? More alone than before? Sometimes a connection can remain active in form while becoming hollow in substance. You still message. You still have contact. You still exchange words. But the interaction no longer nourishes you. It leaves you depleted. And that emotional depletion usually means something real is changing. Healthy emotional connection tends to reduce unnecessary anxiety. Not all the time, not perfectly, but overall, it creates more clarity than chaos, more steadiness than confusion. When someone is walking away, the dynamic often begins doing the opposite. Every interaction becomes a puzzle. Every response becomes something to interpret. Every silence becomes louder. And this is where people can get trapped for a very long time, because they keep chasing relief from the same place that is now producing the uncertainty. They think, maybe one more good conversation will calm me down. Maybe one more moment means things are okay again. But if the overall pattern keeps leaving you emptier, then your body may already be understanding something your hope is still resisting. Connection is not just about access. It is about emotional impact. And if talking to her now consistently makes you feel more alone, that feeling deserves to be taken seriously. Sign number 7. She starts acting normal while the intimacy quietly disappears. This is the sign people misread the most, because they think, well, nothing bad happened. There was no fight, no dramatic ending, no obvious rejection. Everything seems normal. But that is exactly what makes it dangerous. Sometimes emotional withdrawal does not look cold. It looks calm. It looks civil. It looks stable. It looks like friendly continuity. And if you are still attached, you can mistake that calmness for hope. But sometimes what has actually happened is that the intimacy has been removed while the connection shell remains. She still talks, still responds, still behaves decently, but the vulnerability is gone. The emotional risk is gone. The sense of being deeply let in is gone. And this can happen because for many people, pulling away emotionally does not mean they want drama. It means they want distance without confrontation. They want the bond softened, reduced, flattened, made safer for themselves. So rather than ending it loudly, they lower the emotional intensity until the connection becomes something else, something less alive, less intimate, less demanding. And if you do not understand what you are seeing, you may cling even harder because on the surface, nothing looks broken enough to grieve. But emotionally, the loss is already happening. This is why some of the hardest endings are not the loud ones. They are the quiet ones. The ones where someone slowly stops reaching with their heart while still leaving the door slightly open. Not enough for closeness, just enough for ambiguity. And ambiguity can keep people emotionally stuck for months. So, what do you do if you are recognizing these signs? First, do not rush to accuse. Awareness is not the same thing as panic, and pain is not proof by itself. You want to look at patterns, not isolated moments. One bad week does not equal emotional withdrawal. One-off conversation does not define everything. But if several of these signs are happening consistently, then the answer is not to keep shrinking your perception until it feels convenient. The answer is to become honest about what the pattern is doing to you. Second, stop treating confusion as closeness. A lot of people confuse intensity with connection. They think if they are thinking about someone all the time, if they feel pulled, if they feel anxious, if they feel obsessed, then the bond must still be deep. Not necessarily. Sometimes what feels intense is simply instability, and instability is not intimacy. Third, understand that love cannot be built through one-sided interpretation. If you are the only one carrying the emotional weight of the connection, reading the signs, protecting the bond, explaining the distance, reaching for clarity, then eventually you have to ask yourself a gentler but more honest question. Am I in a relationship with what is real, or with what I keep hoping this will become again? That question hurts, but it also frees you. Because once you stop chasing the version of her that only appears in flashes, you can begin facing the version of the connection that is actually here now. And that is where clarity begins. Not in denial, not in forcing closure, not in trying to decode every last detail, but in respecting what repeated emotional experience has been teaching you. If someone is emotionally walking away, your job is not to become more pleasing, more patient, more perfect, or more available in order to reverse it. Your job is to stay close to reality, to your dignity, to your own emotional truth. Because the deepest damage often does not come from someone leaving. It comes from abandoning yourself while they do. If this video gave language to something you have been feeling, let me know in the comments which sign hit the hardest. And if you want more calm, honest conversations about love, attachment, mixed signals, and emotional clarity, subscribe to Soft Mind. You do not need more noise. You need clearer vision. And if that is what you are looking for, stay with me here.